Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is Austin Rambo on philosophy and coffee. Today we will be dissecting Stanley Kubrick's 1971 film, A Clockwork Orange. For those who do not know, Stanley Kubrick was a famous director known for extravagant pictures such as 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, The Shining, and Eyes Wide Shut. So in 1971, he adapted Anthony Burgess's novel of the same name, Clockwork Orange, and filmed it starring Malcolm McDowell. And the film was nominated for Best Picture in 1971. And today we'll be discussing the philosophical and the religious allegories of the said film. Hope you enjoy. Thanks. Let's begin, before we delve into the summary of the film, what the meaning of the title A Clockwork Orange means. An orange is usually very fruit and colorful, very sweet and citrusy, depending on the texture, and it's very life form. If you establish a clockwork into it, whether that's a social, political, or psychological mechanism in it, it is not an orange anymore. The film A Clockwork Orange details Alex DeLarge, who is a gang member in the near future of England. He runs around with his friends, trips on acid laced with milk, and assaults and robs various people, and is obsessed with classical music. After being arrested for his crimes, he accidentally murders a woman he assaults. He is granted a treatment titled the Ludovico treatment, which brainwashes him and allows anytime he thinks of violence, he gets sick and is scared of it. After he is released from prison following the psychological treatment, he is subject to the same assaults of the people he hurt, but Alex cannot fight back, and the audience is left to wonder whether we truly feel bad for this person who is notably very violent at the beginning of the film. Even though the revenge is taken upon him, he has no choice but to submit and get nauseous upon the attacks he receives. So that is the summary of A Clockwork Orange, and now we will go into the philosophical allegories of the film. The main philosophical notion of A Clockwork Orange deals with the idea of being born evil or good. Even though Alex develops antisocial personality disorder, whether it's through the neglect of his parents, the possible molestation of his parole officer upon him, or the environment he grew up in, Alex is characterized as an evil antisocial character, and he chooses to do the crimes and atrocities that he commits throughout the first half of the film. Even though when he goes to prison, he is forced to be good. He's brainwashed to be good. He's not actually choosing to be good. The philosophy around that is it worth it to be forced to be good, or is it better to choose to be evil? Throughout both the novel and the film A Clockwork Orange, the idea of free will versus determinism comes into play. Stanley Kubrick and Anthony Burgess, the author of the novel, argue that human nature and morality in general include the capacity to choose evil or choose to be bad or inherently good. Now, the idea of A Clockwork Orange goes back to the organic structure of an orange, whether it's very citrusy and fruity, but you add a mechanism into it, it's not an orange anymore. And this is also a critique of behaviorism, where certain conditioning and certain treatments come into play, especially in the psychological realm. Is it truly a human anymore if we put certain treatments or medicines into certain people? As the film and novel Clockwork Orange clearly exemplifies the idea that to restrain a man does not free him, it also creates a monstrosity by allowing this treatment upon people, because it doesn't make them truly human. It is important for human nature to be able to choose whether that is good or bad, and that is part of being human. Even further, in The Clockwork Orange, it exemplifies the idea of art and questions whether is it truly transcending human nature, or is it shaping society and the way we control it. For example, Alex is very into the classical music, specifically Beethoven, and very erotic and religious artwork throughout the film. Even though he listens and transcends and thinks about violent acts, it also shapes who he is and the way society can shape and control who he is. That's basic philosophy of A Clockwork Orange. Now we're going to go into the religious allegories of the film. To illustrate the earlier idea of the philosophical notion of morality and free will versus determinism, I want to show you a clip from the film. It is a scene where Alex is in prison and is talking to the prison chaplain after fantasizing and reading the Bible during library time in the film. Even though he's not reading for religious reasons, he's reading because he is fascinated by the sex and violence portrayed in the book, especially the fascination with Jesus' torture and execution. The priest goes into how goodwill comes from within, and I hope this clip further exemplifies and illustrates the ideas I was talking about.
Is there something troubling you, my son? Don't be shy to speak up. Remember, I know of the urges that can trouble young men deprived of the society of women.
Oh, Father, it's nothing like that, Father. It's about this new thing they're all talking about, Father. About this new treatment that gets you out of prison in no time at all. And make sure you never get back in again.
Where did you hear about this? Who's been talking about these things?
These things get around, Father. Two warders talk as it might be, and somebody can't help overhearing what they say. And somebody picks up a scrap of newspaper in the workshops, and the newspaper tells all about it. How about putting me in for this new treatment, Father?
I take it you are referring to the Ludovico technique.
I don't know what it's called, Father. All I know that it gets you out quickly and makes sure you never get back in again.
That is not proven 655 to 1. In fact, it is only in the experimental stage at this moment.
It is being used, isn't it, Father?
It has not been used in this prison yet. The governor has grave doubts about it. And I have heard that there are very serious dangers involved.
I don't care about the dangers, Father. I just want to be good. I want for the rest of my life to be one act of goodness.
The question is whether or not this technique really makes a man good. Goodness comes from within. Goodness is chosen. When a man cannot choose, he ceases to be a man.
I don't understand about the whys and wherefores, Father. I only know I want to be good.
Be patient, my son. Put your trust in the Lord.
Instruct thy son, and he shall refresh thee, and shall give delight to thy soul.
Amen.
The central theme presented throughout Clockwork Orange is, does morality have any spiritual value? Obviously, the idea of God comes into play with Alex and whatever higher power you believe in. The point is, Alex is organic and chooses his own path to be evil, with all his transgressions involved. But the question comes into play, is altering God's design of Alex the right and moral thing to do, and presented throughout the film? Even though it is inherently good on paper to modify a criminal's behavior, especially a violent criminal, he doesn't choose anymore. They reference the idea in A Clockwork Orange. The minister in particular claims that Alex is a perfect Christian now once he has successfully completed his Ludovico treatment, and he will rather be crucified rather than crucified, just the same as Jesus Christ is presented throughout the Christian philosophies in the Bible. And even though Jesus had free will that we know of, Alex does not anymore. So he is forced to be crucified. He doesn't choose to lay down his life for others. He is now forced to. The absurdist behavior throughout Clockwork Orange is the idea of, even though he's a perfect Christian, he has no moral value and no moral choice anymore. And it goes into the idea of, would God actually approve of this conditioning for certain criminal behaviors? Anthony Burgess's novel is actually quoted by saying that part of humanity is important to choose, even if your human nature and your choices lead to transgression and transgressive values. The plot of the prison section in A Clockwork Orange, Alex volunteers to do the treatment of his own free will because in the hopes to free him from prison and let him back into the common world as a citizen. It goes back in the novel, it details how restraining people is not actually freeing them. Even though Alex is free now to go back into the real world outside of prison, he is not free to choose. People constantly harass him and beat him up and hurt him and torture him, and he is eventually led to suicide because he can't handle not being able to choose anymore because he's not a human. Now at the very end of the film, the politics get involved and we learn how the political nature that they designed the Ludovico treatment in order to look good for the next election, and the question comes in whether they actually had any compassion for Alex as an individual, or were they just trying to look good as congressmen and prime ministers. And that's why I'll go into my next section of the video, is the political allegory and the political philosophies of A Clockwork Orange. And now I want to show a clip after Alex successfully completes the Ludovico treatment to highlight the morality of free will versus determinism as well as moral choice. Hope you enjoy.
Not feeling too bad now, are you?
No, sir. Feel really great, sir.
Good.
Was it all right, sir? Did I do well, sir?
Fine, my boy, absolutely fine. You see, ladies and gentlemen, our subject is impelled towards the good by, paradoxically, being impelled towards evil. The intention to act violently is accompanied by strong feelings of physical distress. To counter these, the subject has to switch to a diametrically opposed attitude. Any questions?
Choice. The boy has no real choice, has he? Self-interest. The fear of physical pain drove him to that grotesque act of self-abasement. Its insincerity was clearly to be seen. He ceases to be a wrongdoer. He ceases also to be a creature capable of moral choice.
Padre, these are subtleties. We're not concerned with motives, with a higher ethics. We are concerned only with cutting down crime. And with relieving the ghastly congestion in our prisons. He will be your true Christian, ready to turn the other cheek, ready to be crucified rather than crucify, sick to the very heart at the thought even of killing a fly. Reclamation, joy before the angels of God. The point is that it works.
As noted, we're now going to talk about the political philosophies of A Clockwork Orange. As stated earlier, after the Prime Minister realizes that Alex tried to kill himself following his treatment, he actually ends up giving Alex his free will back in return for making Alex make him look good, make the Prime Minister look good for the political election coming up. And the film and novel highlight how when politics gets involved with psychological behavior, they use criminals and certain human citizens as pawns and merely for their ideological gain, as well as election. And the film actually warns against left-wing social engineering and right-wing skepticism of criminal behavior. The film warns against media manipulation as a means for political gain with ideological control. Now, as presented after Alex tries to kill himself in the film, the film has shown newspaper clippings of how Alex was deemed a victim, even though the first half of the film, the audience watches him create monstrous acts, and it's very easy to forget that he did all that when the audience starts to sympathize with him. And the film actually warns how certain colors, whether it's Kubrick's direction or the psychedelic atmosphere of the 60s and 70s, can actually help us identify with the characters such as Alex through art and music and religion, and creates a dystopia for Alex in a way that political manipulate and oppress the criminal behavior as well as force them into jobs such as police officers. Alright, for the last part of my video, I want to talk about the modern rehabilitation techniques as in relation to A Clockwork Orange. Now lately, there have been new treatment options that have worked for certain criminals and rehabilitation techniques, as well as certain addicts, such as the street name booze away pills, which causes you to become sick if you intake intoxicating substances. Now, in relation to Alex's character, as he gets sick, his relation to fear and nausea when he thinks about violence or sexual behaviors, the same does away with type of certain medication with addicts. There have also been certain studies within the criminal field of transgressive and deviant behavior, where certain even pedophiles have been subject to rehabilitation within prison by certain brain studies where they massage certain parts of the brain and they do not feel the need to hurt said people anymore. Very similar to Alex's morality take in A Clockwork Orange, as well as the question comes into play of, if God made these people who they are, why should we change them? Similarly with controversial topics such as abortion and body modification and the like, it all comes in term with morality, human nature. The main philosophy that I've been trying to get at in this video is, if someone is born evil, or if they choose to be evil based on behaviorism and social environmental factors and psychological conditioning, should they be forced to be good? If someone is forced to be good instead of actually with corporal punishment, instead of actual rehabilitation techniques to make a person said to be non-deviant, is it better to choose evil than forced to be good? The age-old question comes into play. When psychological treatment options and criminal and deviant behaviors are put into play, do the people making these medications and making these treatment options truly care about the patients and the people, or are they just using them as pawns for political and social gain? A Clockwork Orange is also relevant of Gen Z culture, especially the idea of youth counterculture in not attaining normal jobs, but also kind of following your own path and choosing your own path, even if relation to transgression and transgressive behaviors. Is that good to force them into a new path, or should they be required to climb a corporate ladder just like the generations before them and create a stronger work ethic instead of internalizing certain anger and psychological disorders and not projecting them out into the world? As I noted before, media manipulation, especially with political advisors, is even more prevalent in Gen Z culture today, such as taking it on social media and believing everything you say. Of course, when you watch the news or check a social media post about the news, it gives you what you want to hear in order to be able to side with the person who wrote it or the people involved in the production of its content. Similarly, with Clockwork Orange, as the Prime Minister posts in the news only what we want to hear, not presenting an idea is good or bad, but actually portraying Alex as a victim, even though at the beginning of the film he was categorized as a criminal and very violent and a sexual deviant, as noted in Stanley Kubrick's production. Even though left-wing politics have social engineering philosophies and right-wing have very skepticism of criminal and deviant behaviors with rehabilitation techniques, it's important to know that neither of these sides are actually, their ideas are adaptive or kept or accurate depiction of human behavior and human nature. As human nature describes, it's important to follow your own path, whether even if you choose transgressive behaviors. Part of the human experience is finding your own way in this world, no matter from behaviorism of your environmental factors of choosing, and you carve your own path versus it's not free will. We all have free will, and it's important to choose, because if we can't choose anymore, we are not humans anymore. We are determined by external factors out of our control, just like Alex was determined to choose good and was not able to choose evil, no matter how much he still had those evil thoughts. Even going back to modern religion today, even though many Christians go to church and have Christian values, they're still subject to free will and can choose whatever behavior they want in and outside of church. Whereas Alex's character in A Clockwork Orange was not able to choose anymore. He's an example of absurdist Christian behavior because he has no moral choice and no moral value of being human anymore. He is metaphorically known as a Clockwork Orange. He is not an orange anymore. Going back to the philosophy of A Clockwork Orange, where an orange is organic and fruitful, and if you wound it up like clockwork, it's not an orange anymore, just like Alex is not a human anymore. He is able to choose evil at the beginning of the film, even though it's depraved and very deviant, whereas he is wound up by political and religious ideologies and forced to be good. He is a mechanical organism. He is not an organic organism anymore. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching. Bye.